nuances of her body and her feet. I used to rub her feet all the time. So to be able to do that one more time, I think I had a hard time actually taking my hands off of her feet for a long time. But to be able to do that again and know that we were just honoring this body that, was hers for so long, this transportation that brought her everywhere to so many states and to so many experiences and brought 5 kids into the world, and just all of that was so sacred, and so we needed to honor that. This was an amazing body, and so I felt so blessed to not only be able to do that, but to know to be able to do that. That was just to be able to say that to somebody. You don't have to let your mother, your loved one, go right this minute. You can stay with them, and you can do this if you choose. You can just hold space. You don't have to touch them, because that's not for everybody. But the body's very warm for quite a while, and it takes a while to cool down, and it doesn't get stiff right away. It takes hours and hours for that to happen. So really that person feels more like they're in a sleeping state, for quite a while after the transition. So it's really pretty beautiful to be able to stay present with that. And if you were going to keep them longer, that's a whole nother conversation, how that would be handled. But you can be prepared for that, if that were going to be your choice, is what would I need on hand so that I can immediately start to prepare for that, to keep my loved one at home. There was a story, I remember, can't remember if it was in my training or I listened to podcasts too on this subject a lot, about a woman whose daughter died in the hospital. She was sick, and she was a little girl. I want to say she was 8 or 9 years old. And she knew she was going to die in the hospital, and there was nothing they could do about it. But she wanted to bring that little girl home when she died, and she didn't know that she could prearrange that. And I don't think she really even knew that she was going to want that for sure. But instinctively, this mother, this is a little girl. She wanted that baby home, and she wanted to take, and it turned into a whole legal ethics thing with the hospital, and there was meetings, and all this took place pretty immediately after the little girl's death, but it was traumatic, and she was able to bring the daughter home. There were no laws preventing it, but because she didn't know, they didn't know, it wasn't talked about, but she brought this little girl home, and she was able to care for her body in her bedroom. She ended up having a home funeral. It was absolutely beautiful and sacred, and family and loved ones and community were able to come and say goodbye to this little girl, and it was the most healing thing for this mother. This mother had cared for this little girl since pre-birth. Think about this little tiny baby that you're bringing up, and you're taking care of all of their physical needs, and then they die. You want to continue that, as long as possible, to see them, to whatever, be their grave or what have you. So just some of this information is just, it's invaluable, to understand that we can do for our loved ones so many things that can change the way we later grieve and the way we remember them, and just how we walk through the world forever after that. It really makes a big difference. Did I touch on all that?
It's beautiful. Can you share a little bit about what it was like to call in a shamanic practitioner and have that support as well?
Yeah, well, Donna was my support system as well, and for my whole family, and that was huge, because really Donna's role, in that was as a doula, and she, this comes to mind all the time, and even my daughter says this to this day, it's like she was so brave to sit down with my family and try and plan. She was also our minister for the memorial service, and she knew my mother, and she worked with my mother in some ministry settings, prior to her being sick and so on. So it was just perfectly natural for her to speak and pray and guide us at the end. And so yeah, it was, for me, because I had been through shamanic training, it was just constant reminders of what I could do. It just, even sometimes just looking at Donna going, oh yeah, I know how to do that. Because, you guys, her voice will be in your head forever. Just like little things that'll come to you, because the teaching is so good, but because we do know, we have great instincts to know how to love, and just the fact that you're sensitive enough to want to be in a program like this, obviously you've got that sensitivity and that desire, to want to move that forward and be able to serve others with it. And so, yeah, Donna's presence was invaluable, a lot because she knew a lot of things about my family, and we had talked about, what would I want her to do, what would I not want her to do, what would she like to do. She was able to come in to the room and do some work with my mom from a shamanic perspective, and do some unwinding and some calling in of spirits and calling in some help to help her to transition, as gently and non-dramatically as possible. So me knowing that she could kind of pick up that ball and get in with that power, as much as she cared about and loved my family and my mother, she could play that, she could be in that role, that shamanic role, and that ministry role, so that I could kind of relax and go, okay, that's getting taken care of. Because as much as I was doing it on some level, calling in, my helpers and my guides, I was losing my mother. There's just nothing like it. I mean, there's, it's such a distraction. It's such a, you can't really remember a lot of things that you've learned when you're truly losing a loved one, when it's right in front of you like that. So to have that support, I can't even describe it. It just, and to know that she was okay. She wasn't taking things personally. She wasn't so connected that she was going to fall apart. I knew she could handle whatever. If she needed to just walk out without saying goodbye, that was okay. I knew she was fine. I wasn't worried about her. It's not like it's just somebody that could just hold space and do what needed to be done. And also ask questions. She asked questions of different family members, like, what would you like for this? Or what do you feel about this? And, and it kind of took that off of me feeling like I was in charge of that. I could just be with my mom as much as possible, and do what I just instinctively wanted to do, like put wine in a syringe, but that was me being me, that was just me connecting with my mom in that way, without worrying about, was it proper? Was it, sacred? What didn't matter. It was sacred to me. So,
that was beautiful, Patty. Just beautiful. Is there anything that you guys would like to ask Patty, or any feedback that you'd like to give as we kind of wrap this up?
I'm kind of curious. So is that like the full-time thing you do, is the death? That's what I'm wondering. Like, what else is?
No, the way I approached this is I kind of, and it's the same thing I did when I did my shamanic training, and so many things that I do is I kind of just put it out to the universe that this is what I'm willing to do. If somebody needs help, I've gotten calls from people, from especially friends and stuff that know that I've had some training, asking about green burial, about different laws, different things that they can do, or navigating some situations. But no, it's not something that I'm necessarily putting out to do full time. It's if the right circumstances present themselves and I can be of service, I'll do that. But again, it kind of goes back to, and it's really emphasized in doula training, is what are you willing to do, and what are your boundaries? And one of the things that some doulas do is they're on call 24 hours a day. I'm not willing to do that. I would do that if I were working with somebody and I'd made that commitment and I said, yes, I'm going to be working with you, and then absolutely I would keep my phone on. But as far as just on a regular basis, it won't fit my lifestyle and what I'm trying to do for myself. So yeah, but I just kind of leave it open, and I'm always digging, and I'm always listening to podcasts and just trying to grow. And I feel like Spirit presents things to me as they're needed. Even today, just being able to share this is, it feels like, planting seeds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Patrice?
Oh, it was beautiful. It just kind of reminded me of some moments with my dad as you were speaking, because my whole family was there for his last breaths as well, and it's just like it's like you said, like you're in service and you don't realize it. So it was beautiful. So I have no questions. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Natalia?
Kind of touches me a little bit. I'm caring for my mom. She's 89 years old. She kind of slowly started to looking at this and are willing, and that's my absolutely delight to help you with this.
Yes. Yeah. It really
Yes,
is.
absolutely. So that's absolutely touches me. Thank you for sharing
Thank you.
your experience.
Absolutely.
There's lots of them. Lots of them.
Zoe?
Thank you for sharing. I have a question. When you say like you're washing the feet and washing the body, it's more like a shamanic practice, or it's more like washing the attachment. Where does it come from? Like washing people, is it
What tradition you mean?
yeah,
Like
if it's like shamanic, or it's more just like for yourself. I wasn't sure like how that.
you know, I feel like that's a Buddhist tradition. Is it? Am I right? Do you know? I feel like Buddhists probably
Do it more often.
Yeah. So I want to say it's Eastern. It comes from that. You know.
We
is
have
it-
that
okay,
too.
and
In
I would-
Orthodox Christianity, we have
Yeah,
that
it's
too.
pretty much
Yeah.
in all
It really
traditions.
is. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And I mean, I know in East India, I know that they wash the body and they purify it and they burn the body, and that's part of the purification process. Is to so I think it's almost metaphorical or symbolic in so many ways. There's even in a hospital now, and I know this only because I know some people that went through this recently. If you say you want to be with the body and you want to wash the body, most of the time they'll let you. So it's I don't think it's as foreign as it used to be, or as because we kind of went through this whole taboo some decades of everything was taboo around dead bodies. Like it just wasn't to be talked about, it wasn't to be touched or managed. We were supposed to just get away and let somebody else handle that. And so I think that that's starting to soften, thankfully. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of a natural, but I think it's kind of metaphorical, in a way, the washing. Yeah.
Thank you for
Good
sharing.
question.
It,
I'm just blown away. It was a wonderful to hear you speak, and it reminded me so much of experience I've had with people that I've lost. So it is. I just can't even imagine what it must be like to have a death doula, because it's so true when you're in that moment with that loved one. You want them to stay, but you know that they have to go, and it would have been so nice to have someone not as invested as you are in that space with you. It would have made such a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Leave it.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Nina?
On everything that you said, very beautiful, and I hope you carry on what you do and teach others more. I think it's a wonderful gift that you have, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Hey, this was just absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
An amazing conversation to share that is so essential in the world that we live.
Yeah.
So I'm so honored and grateful
Thank
that
you.
you came
I'm
today.
honored. Well, I want to just say one more thing, because when you say continue to share and so on, there's a format called a death cafe, and if you've never heard of that or see, you can look it up. I should have put it on your reference, and I did not, so you might want to write it down if it's something that interests you. And it's something that I've actually discussed recently with the yoga studio that I'm associated with, to possibly start some of that there. And basically, it's a little more laid back than this, in the sense that there's not one person talking. I mean, if I were to lead a death cafe, we might literally have some coffee and cookies, or something like that. And it's basically just people gathering to talk about death, whatever that means. And it's a huge movement. It's all across the country, well, outside of our country as well. And people are gathering literally in cafes and other places, and just having some food and some drink, and just talking about death, just to get things moving, just to kind of wiggle things loose and see where we're at. And it's really inspiring, and it's really changing a lot of lives. And so that's something that I actually do plan on starting in my community in Valparaiso. Again, I just had a talk recently with a yoga studio owner, and I think I'm going to start there. with that community and just kind of see where it goes. So yeah, it's really, I think, and maybe that's the role that I'm supposed to play, other than, maybe, if something were to come up with somebody, it's just to kind of pass the word, because it's so important. I really believe in growing this in the communities.
Can I add to that just a bit? I'm sorry, I don't know if my voice is carrying right now or not. I was involved in a project with a Union Church in Lafayette called the Conversation Project.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people my age and above my age that it was taboo to talk about these kinds of things. So we brought this to the congregation there. It
Really?
blew up.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Were just so grateful to hear that we could do this and how this. But there's a program called the Conversation Project.
I'm aware, yeah.
Okay, you got that
Yes.
one already.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great back.
It's
And we
fantastic.
did the 5 wishes with that
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, they're big supporters of 5 wishes.
Just knowing, getting those conversations started with people you love, like with your mom. I mean, my mom and dad, I have no idea what they wanted because they wouldn't talk about those
I
things.
know.
And both of them knew for some time
Yeah.
that they didn't have a lot of time
Right.
left.
Yeah.
The only thing my mother said, and she got it, she wanted a bottle of vodka and a pack of cigarettes in the coffin with her.
Yeah.
But,
The Egyptian, yeah, the Egyptian funeral. I love it.
yeah, so, good, I'm glad you're aware of that one.
Yes.
Good support
Yeah,
for
and that's,
all
I mean,
of us.
and that's really what it boils down to, is just the conversations happening, and just to
Yeah.
get this movement. And that's why I believe so deeply in the 5 wishes. It's just, to be able to I was listening to a woman on a podcast who teaches death doulas, and she said they decided, her and her sister are really into this, and they decided it. They have elderly parents and so on, big family. They decided at Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, they were going to lock the doors and make everybody sit down. It was like, it's going to wait till the day after Thanksgiving. That's it. Nobody leaves till they fill out their 5 wishes. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that family gathering. But it's so critical, It's like they have elderly parents that have not and will not talk about it. And I was grateful my mom was just open enough. We were very close, and she just was like, oh, it's just another one of Patty's things that she's into, that's what she would say, and I'm like, yeah, it is, Mom, so just follow along with me, play along. She's okay, so, she was willing enough, and I'm grateful for that, because I've seen the result of not being prepared, and it's really tough, and it's really tough on the survivors.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Mine is not-
Thank you, this was
Thank you.
amazing, Patty.
And I do have
Stress
my
of
email
it.
address on one of my handouts, and you're welcome to email me if you have questions or something comes up. Honestly, it's totally fine. Email me. So hopefully this gives you some